After the past year of primarily online instruction, we are so happy to be back on campus. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the beautiful array of diversity that is within this first year group. We are so incredibly fortunate and happy to have such a diverse cohort. Each and every one of you represents a new possibility for a better tomorrow. This year, undergraduate studies is prioritizing our institutional core values as we work to reevaluate and rebuild what it means to be a campus community. Those institutional core values are built on the foundations of professionalism, engagement, diversity, excellence, community, communication, fairness, equity, creativity, respect, and dignity. I welcome each of you to contribute to these goals for building an even stronger MICA community, and in turn, building ourselves stronger as individuals. Please know that we are here to support you today as you acclimate yourself to the campus and Baltimore, and over the next 4 years as you build your creative foundation here at MICA. Again, welcome to our wonderful college, and know that personally, my door is always open to each and every one of you. I'd like now to take just a little time to briefly describe MICA's FYE Forum. MICA's Forum 1 and 2 is a year-long course sequence in the first year experience that shares a monthly guest lecture series for the entire freshman cohort. The curriculum has been constructed to emphasize DEIG, which means diversity, equity, inclusion, and globalization, with the 3 main module themes this year of identity, community, and universality. These concentrically nestled themes are grounded in self-inquiry and prioritize critically in examining our relationship from diverse and inclusive perspectives. This fall semester, we focus on honoring the teachings of our beloved Fletcher Mackey, who passed away recently, and memorializing his presence by inviting MICA FYE faculty who have worked closely with him as guest speakers. We also invite our new to MICA Forum faculty members to present as thriving artists, creating work within these main themes. A few of your other guests this semester are multidisciplinary artist educator Cindy Chang, social change activist and director for the Office of Creative Citizenship, Abby Nienhouse, and printmaker, painter, educator, Latoya Hobbs. Today's opening event brings 2 dynamic artists that I am just so excited to introduce you to. Angela N. Carroll, an artist activist, a purveyor, and an investigator of art history and culture. She's a contributing writer for Hyperallergenic, Sugarcane Magazine, Black Art in America, Black Arts, Be More Art, just to name a few. And Eduardo Corral, AKA, and forgive me, Eduardo, if I mispronounce this, I'm gonna do my best. AKA, I'm gonna mess it up. So I will actually let our Eduardo introduce his AKA to you. But anyway, he's an illustrator, interdisciplinary artist, and graphic designer, born in the industrial city of Monterrey, Mexico. His work is based on an ideology that sees the artist as a brand, which is accomplished as a palpable awareness of the investigation between illustration, arts, and design creative branches. These 2 artists are amazingly creative, talented, and you are in for an enormous treat today. So with that, without further ado, I will pass it along now to, I believe, Reb, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you, guys. It has been a pleasure to speak to you today. I'm very, very excited that you're here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Reb?
Hey everyone, we're actually gonna hand it right off to Angela Carroll, and she'll start with her presentation. Angela, thank you so much for being here.
Okay, hey everyone, my name is Angela Carroll, and I'm gonna go ahead and just share my screen. Okay, so first off, really excited to be teaching with Micah this year and with Inforum and designing information courses. I am a writer, I'm an artist archivist, and I'll explain what that means. I am also, my training in history is also in animation and film, so I dabble in those mediums as well. We'll start off with a quote in a beautiful screen print by the amazing artist Lex Valdez called Lextapositions from 2018. But within it, they quote James Baldwin, where he says, "The role of the artist is exactly the same as the role of the lover. If I love you, I have to make you conscious of the things you don't see." And so a lot of the work that I do and have done for the last decade or so has been about bringing light to artists, to writers, to creatives, to interventions that have occurred by folks who have historically been situated at the margins, meaning that they are typically people of color, they may be queer, they may or may not be American. They may or may not adhere to Abrahamic religions. They are seen as alien in all ways. And so much of my work has been to form and reform and revitalize the notion of what normalcy is, and to resituate our understanding about history and about art history in particular, so that we don't create divides that say only white histories are important and that all other histories have to be separate or elective practices. I've gotten into some very interesting trouble, righteous trouble, great trouble as a result of this desire to see equity within the arts and within history and at large. But I look to my heroes and my patron saints, James Baldwin and many others, Audre Lorde, as a kind of example that it is okay. And oftentimes when you have a kind of vitriolic response to your desire for liberation or freedom for your people and for people that you care about, that typically means you're doing a lot of great work. My early history and studies in undergraduate work, I studied at UMBC, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and trained within animation. I had a very ambitious goal at first to combine ancient studies, Africana history, art history, and animation together. I found some very interesting concerns within the ancient studies department there, and that they were very, they only wanted to have us focus either within the Greeks or the Romans. I was very interested in studying all of the African civilizations that existed prior to Greek and Roman colonization. And so there was a lot of pushback about that, largely because the professors there at the time had no understanding of those histories whatsoever. And when I said I want to study ancient Africa, they automatically said, "Oh, so you want to be an Egyptologist?" For anyone who has ever studied a map of Africa, we know that Egypt is one country of many, many, many countries. in the continent, in the huge continent of Africa. And so I was very discouraged, but realized that I could still use time-based media, film, experimental cinema, and animation as a way to query this notion of what history is and why history is taught the way that it is. Much of my graduate studies, which were at the University of California at Santa Cruz, where I received my MFA in digital arts and new media with an emphasis in interdisciplinary studies and mixed media and experimental cinema studies, focused on this query of what is history and why do we have so many issues with trying to create equity within the teaching of history and within our general understanding of history. I worked with, at the time I was doing, also very interested in language. And so I was working with spoken word artists, and there was a collective of poets and performance artists on UC Santa Cruz's campus called Rainbow. And the Rainbow Collective was a collective of queer and people of color artists and writers and poets and spoken word artists who were very interested in rupturing, again, these notions of time and space and history and whose stories could and should be forefronted. I was able to work with some extraordinary poets at the time who were each from their own particular identities, thinking about and troubling what history was and what their relationship to it was. The result was a series of short films called Her Story. And Her Story situated artists. One artist was Japanese, one artist was Chinese, one artist was Chicana or Mexican American. And each of these artists considered and thought about and queried and troubled how they themselves had to understand history, largely through digging through their own archives, their family archives, to figure out who they were in relationship to how America saw them, right? Which was a really beautiful experiment. And then through using largely After Effects, as well as some 3D software like Maya and 3D Max and some Blender, we were able to recreate these dreamscapes, these landscapes, to help us understand what our histories were. This is a screenshot or still from the one that was about my personal history, called Her Story 1, dealing with the ways in which we feel alienated, even within our own countries, also dealing with surveillance culture and the normalization of surveillance culture against people who fight for equity and who fight for liberation. When I was in California, I lived in Oakland, California for many, many years. And while there, I was very interested in film and pushing animation further, but it seemed that the community really needed documentary work. And so during that time, I was commissioned to do a short film for Dr. Angela Davis, who was a professor at that time within the History of Consciousness program at UC Santa Cruz. And so we did a film called Angela Y. Davis, Radical Pedagogy in 2008, where I created her as a stop motion character. And we talked about, again, this notion of history and how, even though Angela Y. Davis is a very well-known figure, as far as her image is concerned, you'll see the image of her in her early 20s with an afro. That image has been turned into buttons, has been turned into T-shirts, has been turned into posters, but very few people have actually read her work, right? Have actually read her work about abolition, about prison abolition, about liberation in the country and also around the world. And so I thought that was very interesting. And so that film queries that. I also, at the time, around 2010, I was living in Oakland, and that is when, and this is before the wide sort of spread movement of Black Lives Matter, there was the murder of Oscar Grant, who on the BART station, which is similar to our metro station here in the DMV, while on the BART on New Year's Eve, many, many people witnessed him being killed, shot while on the ground, unarmed, not resisting, shot by the BART police there. And there were significant uprisings, significant protests that occurred after his murder, trying to understand not just his murder, but also histories of violence and histories of normalization of the murder of unarmed Black men, women, and migrant communities within the Bay Area. I worked on a film called Operation Small Axe, Police Terrorism and Resistance in Oakland, California, that traveled around the nation and also internationally with then Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney, who screened it in Palestine during the time when she was, at that time, she was running for president, I believe, years earlier for the Green Party. And so it was an honor to be able to have her recognize and see my work and share my work internationally with other freedom fighters and other liberation fighters across the world. I also, at that time in 2010, there was a significant earthquake in Haiti, and that earthquake devastated many people. Thousands and thousands of people were left homeless, many people, because many of the buildings are created out of concrete. When the earthquake came, it fell on them. And because there was not a lot of equipment to remove or be able to move large pieces of concrete from people, many people had to become amputees, have legs and arms removed in order for them to survive. And so we arrived there to provide aid, to give water, but also to document what was happening on the ground, because we were hearing from people that though people were giving hundreds of thousands of dollars to organizations like the Red Cross and others, that much of that aid was not getting to the people within Port-au-Prince or outside of the region, within the more rural regions outside of the primary capital of Haiti. And so we went on the ground to figure out exactly what was happening, and were able to document that within the film Haiti Rising from the Ashes in 2010. Much of my inspiration continues to be situated within film, continues to be situated within radical minds who saw the impact of time-based media, of cinema, of film, to create change, to create ruptures in the ways that we imagine the contemporary moment, and into rupturing notions around how we can envision the future. One of my favorite filmmakers of all time is Sergei Eisenstein. Many of you may be familiar with the battleship Potemkin from 1925. He remains a significant influence in showing me the ways in which cinema can spark the imagination and can create a catalyst through which people desire to change. I am also consistently inspired by the work of Akira Karasawa. I've seen almost everything that he has ever created. I adore him. He is one of my patron saints. This is a still from one of my favorite works of his called The Daskaden, or The Train, and which situates people in their everyday lived experiences, showing how they struggle to survive. At this time and before understanding Kurosawa, and particularly within the American context, we learned very early on to segregate people and people's experiences so that we only have one understanding in our imaginaries about who struggles and who is worthy of prospering. Watching international cinema helped me to expand my imagination and to understand the facade that only certain populations struggle while others, and only certain populations, can be prosperous. I'm also very inspired by many of the filmmakers from the LA Rebellion. One of them, in which Charles Burnett I had the opportunity to meet some years ago, he directed a film called The Killer of Sheep, which is an extraordinary film, also talking about and showcasing rare exemplifications of African-American experiences in the country. I'm also endlessly inspired by another of my patron saints, Ousmane Sembène, a significant, the godfather, many of us call him, of African cinema, a Senegalese filmmaker who helped to bring more conferences and awareness of African filmmakers from across the diaspora, including the full continent of Africa, to the world stage. Whereas prior to him, it was believed that that African filmmakers, that Latino filmmakers were neither intelligent enough, nor did they have the technological sophistication in order to create dynamic cinema. Much of the filmmakers from his generation who created from a moment called third cinema worked to disprove that notion and have created extraordinary bodies of work to that end. I will move forward with a quote from another of my patron saints. I am giving them all honor today, Ibaye Audre Lorde, who notes in her essay, Sister Outsider, and book Sister Outsider, the true focus of revolutionary change is never merely the oppressive situations which we seek to escape, but that piece of the oppressor which is planted deep within each of us. Much of my work forces people to think about the ways in which they too are implicated in the subjugation and oppression of those around them. What are the ways in which you other people in your communities? What are the ways in which you allow for oppressions to continue? What are the ways in which you participate in violence, systemic, emotional, spiritual, psychological violence against people that you consider to be different from you and therefore less worthy of humanity? It is important that we do this work of querying, do this work of troubling, so that we can work towards a collective liberation. If one of us is not free, none of us will be free. I consider myself to be an artist archivist, which ultimately means that I am combining my writing, which oftentimes is critiques or reviews, into the actual reference or considerations of archival. I believe that the writing provides a broader perspective about the intersections between our collective past, presence, and imagined futures. It's especially important to archive, critique, and review artists who have historically been omitted from art archival initiatives. Otherwise, we will not know who these artists are. This work includes the collections of major art museums, critique by notable publications, and recognition by art historians. I consider all of this work to be archival work. And it is important work. Otherwise, future generations and present generations will continue to believe the lie that only certain people's histories are worthy of recognition, and everyone else's histories should remain at the margins of our understandings. I have made a conscious decision, which has gotten me into a lot of, righteous trouble, to contribute to the scholarly archival of marginalized artists, particularly those from the African diaspora, America, Latin America, and the Caribbean in particular. I have been published with Umber Magazine, with, as of now, Sugarcane Magazine, Be More Art, DC Theater Scene, Hyperallergic. I have some publications that will come out shortly with Saint Haran, which is the publication by Solange Knowles. I also have a publication of my own, a catalog called Exploring Presence, African American Artists in the Upper South, which represents the last 3 years of research that I've done to make sure that unsung African American elder artists who are based within the DC, Maryland, and Virginia region, with the emphasis on DC and Baltimore, get the recognition that they deserve. There are 10 artists in total. They include Martha Jackson Jarvis, Joy Scott, Ed Love, Paula Whaley, Linda Day Clark, S.B. Frazier, Olitha Devane, Aziza Claudia Gibson Hunter, Schroeder Cherry, and the late great Tom Miller. What's most dynamic about this text that we are very excited to release, which will be a limited edition print of no more than 200 copies that are signed by all of the living artists. 8 of the artists are living, 2 of them, Tom Miller and Ed Love, have transitioned. But the pieces are to show the significance and the prolific nature of these artists' work, who for the most part have been unrecognized largely because they did not live within or play within the confines or constructs of the art museum system as it was related to New York. To be an artist of color, making work from the 70s up and really until the last 10 years, if you did not live within New York, it was unlikely that people would recognize your work as worthy or significant. As a result, there are large populations of prolific artists, meaning that they have large, vast bodies of work who remain unsung, unknown, obscure, and largely may have some of their work reviewed posthumously, meaning that many people will wait until they have transitioned or died before they will recognize their work. Obviously, this is problematic, right? We want to make sure that these artists get their flowers while they are alive. And there was a recent show at VCU called The Dirty South, which did a similar sort of survey looking at artists in the South proper, to say that their work was relevant and worthy of exhibition and display. Likewise, I am looking at artists that are in this region, which is considered the Upper South or Up South, meaning that we are too far south of New York to be considered a city proper, but too far north to be considered the South proper. As such, we stand in a kind of liminal space that has been unduly ignored. And so much of my research is working to rightly recognize these artists. This will be the first in a series of catalogs and exhibitions that rightly recognize artists that are situated within the Upper South, which again is Maryland and DC adjacent artists. I have, over the last few years, have received fellowships and grants from significant institutions, including I am currently a Common Field Fellow. I've received a Ruby's Artist Grant in 2020. I received a Saul Zantz Innovation Fellow Grant in 2020 as well, a small grant and opportunity to work on a project with Q Art Foundation in 2018, working with the great curator, Larry Osei-Mensah, who recently curated a show with Robles, I'm forgetting her name, Amber Robles Gordon, that is currently at American University. At this time in 2018, I got to work with him on a beautiful exhibition by the late, recently transitioned artist Peter Williams, on the exhibition called With So Little to Be Sure Of, which was a significant work talking about histories of violence in the nation. I also, in 2018, was a fellow for the Day 8 Art Writing Fellowship based in DC. Again, very excited to be working and speaking and collaborating and plotting with students and faculty here at MICA. Do stay in touch with me or holler at me if you see me on campus. You can stay in touch with me at angelaandcarroll.com, or you can follow me on my IG at Angela_N_Carroll for more information. My book, Exploring Presence, again, will be dropping in the next few months. So look out for more updates about that release as well.
Angela, should I go next?
Oh, yes, sorry, passing it on to Eduardo.
Yeah, let's see. Gonna share screen. Can you all see my screen, I guess? Let's see. Can you hear me all right? Awesome. So I will try to go as quickly as possible, but okay, so hello everyone. Muy buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Eduardo Corral. And bueno, la razón por la que estoy hablando español es porque tenemos un tema de identidad, entre otras cosas. So for whoever doesn't speak Spanish, my name is Eduardo Corral, and I'm from Mexico. And I will talk a little bit about, I guess, my last project. And I will confess that I had like the hardest time. I was like hoping to finish this like in a full week of work. How can I say this, I guess? And I finally, I think, found the way of doing this. So my name is Eduardo Corral, and I'm going to talk for the FYE Forum Speaker Series with the theme of identity, community, and universality. So My, I guess, artistic name is TLaloC. That's the way you pronounce it, Colette. And that's the way I go by in the, I guess, in the art world. So I am an artist, illustrator, and graphic designer. And I guess I need to point out, like, I guess, just for everyone to like know where it is, like this is United States. Nope, it's not Monterey, California, it's with double R. So I guess I can say that it's like a 2 hours and 53 minutes like drive from Texas to my hometown. No, it's not. Next to beautiful beaches and well, 5 hours, 52 minutes, I guess, from in a plane to Baltimore, Maryland. So let's see, just give me 1 second. So I come from a place that is called the City of the Mountains. That's kind of the nickname that I have, and I want to prove that with these beautiful images. And I will say that from among the other things that my city is well known for, it might be the most carnivorous city in Mexico, that's for sure. And this is like some of the typical, I guess, dishes that we have. And I'm gonna just like give you a little bit of other weird context, maybe even unnecessary, but well, it's also, I guess, home of this, the wealthiest place in Latin America and Mexico per capita. And it's also considered to be the most Americanized like city in Mexico. So this is just some houses like on sale, they're for sale in the market right now. And this is, I mean, this is, I think, like they're the real people that lives there, and it's just some random covers and spreadsheet from a Monterey magazine that I found. And I just want to point out like how peculiar my Mexico, I think, is. So I graduated from the MFA in illustration practice program. And I came here with a Fulbright. I was like very lucky to be the recipient of the Fulbright scholarship. Honestly, the only way to actually pay my tuition here at MICA. And I've been a teacher for 13 years and counting, and very, very happy about it. Among other projects, and I'm just gonna show this like very quickly, like very recent projects, I was the artist that created the first Spotify Awards. This was like made in Mexico, and it's made out of silver. And just fun fact, like May 5th, 2020, it was like right before the pandemic hit. So it was the last show that I was able like to see, I guess, like I'm just showing the artist like just holding this. And here you can see like Baltimore, like out of my window with my, I guess I got some copies from the Spotify Awards that I made. So I've been working like, I have been into 40 or plus like collective national and international exhibition. And fifth solo exhibition. Actually, I'm focusing on this particularly because Orbis Tertius is exactly the theme of my exhibition, my last show. And it's my fifth solo show, but my first one in the United States. So I was very, very happy about it. I've been creating this like, I guess, kind of like a highlight time-lapse like chart where I show like people, I guess, some of the interesting things that have happened to me before. Circa 1998 and 2000, May 2021, it's what we're going to focus on. And more interestingly, I'm going to talk about my passion project called El Green Project. And well, long story short, or El Green Project, long story short, or how some stories take time. And this is going to be the first time, I think, that I'm going to go even beyond 1998, like to talk 1987. So I can talk actually about this project. So the concept is this. El Green Project is a multi-layer experience consisting in creating an ongoing collection of mysterious artifacts with no identifiable function or certifiable existence. Each of them provided with strangely familiar characteristics, mainly borrowed from the collective memory of artifacts lost in time. They are reminiscent of old appliances, tools, and forgotten contraptions. Basically, and that's like I guess the bottom line that I reached like not too long ago. Basically, it's a project about creating nothing. That was my project. So what is this project based on? So first, nostalgia. This is actually, I mean, I guess like just to compare like the houses, like this is the house that I used to live back in 1987. This is my aunt's house, like a location in a part in Monterey. I lived there from 2 to 6 years old. And I was raised by 4 amazing women, my mother, like, and her sisters and her mother. So what shapes this project? And I'm gonna start with this box. Well, back when I was living here in this house, I used to have this like, I guess, box of toys. And I remember like I used to tip over the blocks to scatter every single one of those contents on the floor. I remember the joy of rearranging everything over and over, constructing different worlds and characters with a different set of rules each time. And you'll see that this permeates in my work like further. But it starts with the question, or I guess like the funny thing here is this. And I cannot see you folks, but I'm going to make the joke anyway. Has it ever happened to you? Has it ever happened to you that you are, let's say, like trying to find the Christmas tree or the Christmas ornaments, like among boxes, like in your, I don't know, basement or something. And then suddenly you find something that you have absolutely no clue what you're holding. And you're like, Mom, what is this? And not your mom, not anyone knows exactly what you're holding. So that's exactly what my project is about. And I'm just gonna continue quickly. These are actually my toys. I mean, some of the toys that I can remember. I mean, I cannot see your faces, but if you're laughing of my third, like, I guess, toy, which is like, I know it's a juicer. Well, I'm going to challenge you with this like notion, and that is part of my whole project, which is like, and the other thing that is important in my project is reinterpretation. And I use this like through identifiers gathered from memory. So in that case, I mean, I think this is a very clear example of how this, like, which started as a juicer, at least in my 2-year-old, like 5 or like a year-old, like head or brain, it could be like perfectly like a UFO or something. So the funny thing, and this is, I think, the funniest thing in that memory, is that I used to have an actual toy, but back in the day, I was like so weirded out of what it was. I mean, like, when I was looking at it, I had like no clue whatsoever what to do with it. So it was not really a toy. It was the most mysterious artifact in my whole like cardboard box. So one of the things that I wanted to like create with this project, I think, is the possibility to contain it in a tangible form. What do I mean by it? How can I replicate the sense of strangeness? That's, I guess, like the base core of my project. So I guess like at some point I realized that I can give shape to the strangest object on Earth. I mean, by creating one or like many weird objects. So another thing is the fascination of the unknown and the obsolescence of things. As you can see, like, I can guarantee you, I can actually like bet you money that you have no clue of any of these objects that are here in the screen. Where are they? And I think that's, I think, the lovely or the cool thing about, I guess, the curiosity with the unknown. What else shapes my project? Secret languages and mysterious symbols of my childhood. As you can see here, these were like other sources of inspiration. And all my life, I know right now as a graphic designer that those are logos. But back in the day, I was like so kind of weirded out or like surprised about these like weird elements that they were, I guess, on places. Actually, I'm highlighting this like salt and pepper, like old, very, very old shakers, because like my aunt used to have them and still have them, if you can believe it. So the strangest object that started all. So if I retrace my steps, this starts with this particular object here that you can see on screen. I found this circa 1998. This is like a sheet of paper trying to replicate this, I guess, like a so-called like created weird, strangely weird artifacts. And as you can see, I was actually even like creating the logo back in the day, which is el green, that actually stayed. It doesn't mean actually absolutely anything, like coming from a Spanish-speaking country, but I just like the way like I guess the letters flow, and it stay. So I'm just like highlighting some of these because I want to show you that around 1998 and 2005, when I was working at the newspaper back in Monterey, I was actually like, when I was like working with Adobe Illustrator, I started to like put some color and more, I guess, identity to them. So as you can see, like my intention was like to make them look like plastic, some sort, and I was actually naming them with just weird names, just I guess for fun. At some point, I started to develop like unique taxonomies like on them in order to control the universe, create your own rules and understand them. And in the same way you have like, I don't know, plants or animals like with like classification. I started giving classifications to all these artifacts. At some point, and it was like one of my favorite things that happened to him, is people started asking like, where are they? So I guess I was just like giving the option like for people to tell me what they were. And I'm highlighting this one here that one of my friends told me that looks like a cricket organizer. And I thought that was genius. So yes, that's a cricket organizer for you folks. So one of the things that I noticed or I imagine about my project is like the autonomy that you can give to a project is what makes it universal. And if I let people own it and make it grow, is what can actually like make more sense about it, like from something that doesn't make any sense like from the beginning. So if I continue, I even at some point created this slogan with like, I guess like 50s kind of like aesthetic saying, what is it? And why do I love it so much? I mean, almost like giving this like sense of like weirdness to it. Well, at some point I realized that after creating too many nothings, right? My idea is to create nothing. I created by consequence something. And I don't know if you're gonna get the joke like some people do if you're familiar with this, but one of the things that I realized, if you're familiar with Rick and Morty, is that I've been creating plumbuses all my life. So I'm gonna play the video, but just for the record, it's kind of like a running joke of an object that doesn't exist or doesn't make any sense. And I just realized that it's exactly what I've been doing since, I don't know, like the beginning of time. Well, then after a moment, I realized that there was like an accidental inspiration in my work. So I started with the strange objects, but then I started to think, what about the strange places where they live? So this was like almost like an accident in former Yugoslavia, forgotten monuments, or the day I was introduced to brutalist architecture. One of my friends was telling me like, dude, have you seen this like architecture? It kind of remind me of your objects. And as soon as I saw this one that I'm like, I guess like putting this like arrows into, I was like thinking, wait, what? I've been doing brutalism all this time, so I didn't even know about it. So I thought it was the funniest thing. So I just like capitalized on that, I think. This was my first like architectural like illustration that I created as a tribute to this, and I call it the 9 Colossuses. I did it when I was here at MICA, and part of my thesis, or I guess part of my exploration. That was 2012. 2 years passed, as soon as I was like reaching thesis, this was kind of like a more mature version that I call Las Fábricas, which was part of my thesis, just part of my thesis, because it was like so many parts of the thesis. And I call it 2014 isometric law, because I realized of how important isometry could be for my projects. As you can see, I was the same way I was showing you this, like, I guess, logos in my, I guess, childhood. I started to like, I guess, adapt the symbols to my universes just to make them more concrete. At some point, I even created this like weird character that I call El Señor Tube, which is basically like Mr. Tube, or it's just like a tube head person. And I call it almost like just to, I guess, rationalize my project, almost like the Mickey Mouse of my Disneyland, right? So at some point, like, I'm just to show you, these are my notes, and this just like started from this, I guess, just weird doodle that I created. And then I guess if I fast forward like way afterwards, I started like developing this character like over and over. So there was another moment here. This is after MICA. I call this the critique day. And this, I was thinking like the people that inhabit this peculiar universe. So this was my first time my architectural explorations found their habitants. So strange objects, strange places, strange people, right? Now, I'm highlighting this here, like just for you to notice that I've been creating this like kind of like symbols that repeats on my work, like over and over. So if I continue, I was like so lucky. These people were my heroes, like back in 2000 and I don't know, before 2010. And in 2016, I was so lucky that I was able like to be on the first Pictoplasma class, like that it was taking place in Mexico. They used to just do that in Berlin. But then as soon as they went to Mexico, I applied and I was like able to be here. And it's basically like a creation of characters type of, I guess, institution, let's say. And I was very happy in this, like, it was like a 5-day workshop. I was actually able like to make El Señor Tube like by hand. This was like, I guess my second or third like ever done like sculpture in my life. So I thought it was very cool. And I guess like this, like further, like this is the most refined like version of it. For whoever, all my students are like taking my FYF like class, this is the type of like approach that we think of the, I guess, limited edition, right? So at some point, 2017, I mean, way long after I graduated from MICA, well, not long, but I started creating this like brutalist series just to like, I guess, continue with this project or exploration of like city landscapes. And as you can see, like I started to put El Señor Tube in all of them, like almost like a, I guess just like the person that controls like the whole universe. I created this like, I guess like print, 4 colors. And this, I guess the cool thing about it is that you can actually like rotate it in any way, and it's gonna make sense, as you can see, like people walking in like different dimensions. Later on, and this is the most important, I think, moment, I call it the Eureka moment. When I was creating this, like, I guess I call it Brutalist, like 3, like building number 3, like from the inside, I realized of something. And by the way, this red line here, it just means that the actual, I guess, image can be flipped, like, I guess, upside down, and you're gonna see like another universe, like upside down. So my Eureka moment was this, and please follow me on this one. I was thinking, where have I seen this before? So, I mean, these are zoom ins from like all these characters, like kind of like, I guess, moving levers and just like pushing buttons. And I just realized how similar it was to, it just suddenly hit me. This is my city, for the record, folks. Like if you see here, this is like an old foundry that is called Parque Fundidora. I mean, in your left, you can see like, I guess, the newer version of it. But on your right, you can see like the history of it, like all this, I can almost, or rust, like full of rust, like everything like completely destroyed, or like, I guess, like, and I could see this every day when I was driving like to my house. These are like some historical like images like that you can actually see from this. And I want you to pay attention to the first image in particular. And I just realized that I was like replicating this, I guess, just like workers, like working in this gigantic factory. So as you can see here, El Señor Tube approves. And the other thing is like, I just realized like, I've been like, I guess, looking at like pipes and tubes like all my life. Most likely that's where it come from, right? So I guess the important thing here is that I realized that I've been reconstructing Monterrey from memory, the Mexico I know. And I'm pointing this out because a lot of people like tell me that my work doesn't look like too Mexican. And I will say that it looks as Mexican as it goes. So I created, I mean, like this piece I created, I guess I created this like laser engraved like images from this piece, just trying to create like with the light box like format to replicate the heavy glow radiating from, I guess, the molten metal or iron. And I named this two because there were, I mean, 2 pieces upside down, Hemisferio Boreal and Hemisferio Austral. These 2 names come both from references from Borges, and I'm going to introduce you to him in a second, and Plon Uber Orbis Tertius in particular. And as Angela was the name that you're using, like say like my biggest influence. So I guess my biggest influence is not necessarily an illustrator, but is this man that I love to death, which is Jorge Luis Borges. How do you call it, Angela? Like well, I'm gonna go back to that. But he was an Argentine short story writer, essayist, poet, and translator, and a key figure in Spanish language and international literature. And I cannot describe how much love I have from this man. And I was revisiting like 2 of his best like seller books, Ficciones and El Aleph. And I realized that I was like almost doing something very similar, like creating universes the same way Jorge Luis Borges does. So I started like doing this like visual allegories. First, like thinking, you know what? I created this like Hemisferio Boreal, Hemisferio Austral, like I guess 2 completely, I guess like universes, like completely separate, right? So then I was thinking, what is the type of alphabet that they use? So I started creating, you know, like the way they speak or like the way they write, strange objects, strange places, strange people, strange languages. So this is where I started to like capitalize on this. And then after a while, I was thinking, well, what if those objects can be channeled like via, I don't know, Robert Indiana, that like, you know, remember like big like numbers and whatnot, like can I do something similar? So as you can see here are like this, I guess like lamps that are like basically letters or symbol that I don't even know what they are. So if I continue, and I started developing like more on the concept of Jorge Luis Borges. This is La Compañía, and this is another allegory from short story La Lotería de Babilonia. And it's not necessarily related to like the books, but I like the idea of the company being this almost like ominous, like very aggressive, like people that decide your fate. And I created this like creepy looking like characters. Well, February 22nd, 2018, my father passed away, and it was like one of the most horrible moments that I can remember, but a very important one, I think, because it made me realize that maybe I was approaching my whole project wrong. So after a couple of months after my father passed away after I didn't want it to do anything, I created a piece that is called The Ruins of Future. That is this one here. And again, channelizing again my city, where you can see all these people thriving. And at some point, some sort of cataclysm like came and completely destroyed the whole universe. And I want you to see that El Señor Tube is there just like sitting down as the only survivor of this. Well, I realized that I've been portraying my work wrong, like all the time. I guess I was like, creating it very pristine, very beautiful. And that was not necessarily the case. If all my project is about creating objects that are like forgotten in time, I was forgetting the forgottenness, right? So it was a sad moment, but a very important one afterwards. I went back to Borges. So I created this tribute directly to Borges. And this is an absolute like tribute because if you read the story, La Biblioteca de Babel is exactly literal like depiction of this, of course, with my aesthetic. I continue this with another piece, with another short story from Borges called El Zaire, about this character that like, I guess, falls into the spell of like an object, and then he cannot think of anything else but this. And as you can see, like there's more grit into the projects now. And finally, this one here, Funes el Memorioso, which tells the story about this guy that has like amazing memory, but after falling into from a horse and having a very bad like head injury, like I guess like gets the curse, or who knows, of remembering absolutely everything, past and future. So continuing, I want to say something important, that all these images, and this is finally where we're going, these are the images that gave shape to my last solo show. All this, from all the images, I won all these awards, and I was so happy to think that my illustration was like finally like being recognized. So all this been like, I guess, awards that I've been awarded. And I'm gonna tell you the story of my last solo exhibition that took place here in Baltimore, which is called Orbis Tertius, Flyer to Janger. And again, like one more like allegory or tribute to Borges universe. And they actually, I was so lucky, like that it was like the last Gallery ICA Baltimore last show. And I just want to talk about like luck, persistence, and gratitude. And I will try to do this as quickly as possible. But this is Gallery ICA. At some point when I was pitching my project, like I remember like Lou Joseph and their team were looking at my work when someone, I remember, like, I don't remember the name, but someone said, he should use the other space. And I was saying like, what other space? For whoever knows, like Gallery ICA is already a very big like place. But I mean, and this is, I hope I did a good job to document like my field when then they, I guess, show me what the other space was. So this is, I will call it the portal to the backspace. Sorry about that. This is the backspace. So I was looking at it and I was like, wait, what? I mean, like, is this been all here, like here all the time? And it's actually like 2 or 3 times like bigger than the actual exhibition space. Can I use this? I mean, and this phase that I'm like putting here is not a stretch, believe me. I was like feeling like that. And a couple of more months, like I guess, passed, and this they showed me like they were saying like, oh, by the way, you know that we have like another like spaces. So I was like, what do you mean? Like, so they have a basement, a forbidden room. I call it a forbidden room, a bowling alley, and I was like, wait, what do you mean? And this was like beyond a shock, like to see like the actual gallery was connected to this like 4, 5, 8, 9, I don't know, 11 times like bigger than the actual spaces that I saw. I was like completely like floored. I couldn't believe it. This is I call it the red and blue room. It doesn't make too much sense now, but I want you to see like the texture. It was just unreal. The bowling alley. No, I can't even like say that I was almost this close to pride of like how excited I was when I was looking at this. And this comes like a very heartbreaking moment when they say, oh, by the way, every single thing there is off limits. So I was feeling like horrible. And honestly, I couldn't sleep. I was thinking, I need to use them. I mean, it's almost like so perfect. So I said, you know what? I created this gigantic, I guess, planes or architectural like planes of like the whole exhibition space. And I was explaining to them that I was going to make music for every single room, that it was going to have like fog machine, that every place it was going to have an actual scent. I mean, so it was going to smell like something. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this. Let's see how it goes. Believe it or not, at some point, like after months, like very close to the actual exhibition, they said, you know what? Do whatever you want with the whole space. So I mean, this is like not a stretch. I mean, you see, like they give me like the key of the space. Actually, I could see that like I could actually make the logo that I've been recreating with the thing. And I'm just gonna read this very quickly. Orbis Tertius is described as a secret society of intellectuals that embarks on the colossal mission of creating a world named Tlon from the ground up. Clara to Janger, a title written in a mysterious Tlon language, refers to the name of one of the numerous volumes that are part of the secret encyclopedia that holds the extensive contents of Tlon. The story explained that at some point, this fictional work became so vast by its incredibly rich description and documentation that suddenly many of its imaginary elements start to materialize in real life. So at the very end of the story, Tlon, a world that only existed in paper, progressively takes control of reality until it finally engulfs the world or the real world. So this is, I'm just gonna say thank you for Rodrigo Portales, which created the amazing wall text. This cut over like image from the Baltimore gallery space. This is how it was looking. So so this is like some of the artwork that it was like placed at the exhibition. And as you can see, like some plants were there. Then I created, like, I was like so excited to create another language. Like, I mean, and I created all this like symbols that are actually not created, but taking, I guess, borrowed from Mesopotamian, I guess, like, and African, and like from all over the world. At some point, Helene Choi, which is an amazing teacher at MICA and graphic design, and also my roommate, like helped me like to create this like animated version of it. It was amazing. Thank you, Pete Karras, for Paradise Labs. Like he helped me to create this, I guess, object that you have seen in my work. And this pink one, even if I created it previously, he was able like to actually connect the tail because he was like, I guess, die on the way from Mexico to the United States. And this, I guess, this area, I mean, I'm gonna read it for you. This immersive experience invites the viewer to dive into a world that seems to have devoured the construction of the gallery itself, even transgressing its limits. Its presence bleed through to places outside the gallery, sometimes even opening portals to spaces never seen before. So as you can see, like we collected a lot of trees, a lot of dead trees, by the way. They were like cutting the branches, so I collect them all. And this place, like it was like welcoming you with all this, like, and people were telling me like, where do you got all these trees? It was amazing. Like the experience was like otherworldly. Thank you, Braulio Dominguez, for helping me to create this animated like version of this like objects in the wall that they were like projected in a big, I guess, wall. And what do you know? This inflatable I created in 2014 for part of my thesis, and it was here, it was back. Miguel Sotten, and I'm gonna hate this moment because I'm just gonna say like this. He created the music for the whole exhibition. He's my hero. Every person that I was like going to the gallery was like freaking out, like, what is this music? Like the most terrifying thing, he created the whole thing for every space. I love him to death. And he's a Mexican jazz drummer and composer. So this is the red and blue room. And as you can see, like this is the way it was looking back then when people were entering. Here, as you can see, like the stairs that took you to the basement. And I was trying to capture like people like reaction on the space. They were freaking out. Like the music was like so scary and the smell so weird. Like, so this is the basement. I was here with people like talking. And I guess, again, like being in a place that they had never seen before, like it was unreal. And like this, seeing this like gigantic inflatables, like that there are like symbols of my, that are like all over my illustrations. They were here in gigantic forms. It was amazing. Finally, like Andrew Paul Kiefer, taking photos of this bowling alley. Amazing, like how it looks like so creepy. Believe it or not, Salvador Amaro and I were like my friend from Mexico. He helped me to, I guess, like I was saying it would be so cool to have this character that I created, Funes. So from Mexico and from the United States, we were like doing this thing until like, I guess this was the result of the character. And Kirsten, Justin documenting the work. Thank you. And finally, the Forbidden Room at the basement with Nate Larson, photography, creating one of the most amazing like photos I have ever had like for my work. And yeah, long story short, sometimes a story takes time to be told. So be patient, and thank you all.
Just like to take a few moments to thank Angela and Eduardo. That was absolutely amazing. You two are amazing, and I'm so happy that this was the first iteration of the FYE forum. So with that, I think we're going to close the session. We went a few minutes beyond, so thank you all for sticking with us. And more amazing and good things to come from FYE. Again, welcome to our FYE first year experience students. We are so incredibly happy to have you here back on campus with us, and look forward to an amazing, amazing academic year with you. So thank you all. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Hope you enjoyed today. Thank you, guys.